uncle just said. So remembering Pops, you're going to hear me call him Pops a lot. And a lot of you know that that's how we referred to each other. Pops was a fiercely private and often man of few words. I will remember him always as quick to listen, measured in speech, and slow to anger. And I always strive for that. So because he was often a man of few words, I always loved the rare times he would tell me about his childhood. He would speak of very humble beginnings with his uncles, or with his brothers and his sisters, and his parents, Charlie and Lorinda. He told me about not experiencing a hot shower until he moved out of Anguilla, not wearing shoes to school until he was a teenager, and once receiving just a single red balloon for Christmas, which I try to remind my children of when they're asking me and Jesse for things for Christmas. These stories gave me great insight to my own roots and where I came from. Pops left Anguilla as a young man to attend University of the Virgin Islands, and he studied business, and at the advice of a visiting professor and his friend Keithley Lake, he decided to move to the very center of the United States, in Kansas City, Missouri, to pursue his master's degree from the University of Missouri. I greatly admired my father for this, his pursuit of higher education, and the courage that it took to leave a small place like Anguilla for the big place of the United States. If you ever met and spoke with my father, which all of you have, you likely left that conversation thinking he was an outstanding student in school, or he must have been an outstanding student in school. However, Pops told me that he struggled mightily in school, and academics never came naturally to him. But hard work did. When Pops was at the University of Missouri, he worked incredibly hard. He studied nonstop and even worked as a janitor in the evenings. Can you imagine a man in their master's degree working as a janitor in the evenings? To help pay for his school and pay for his bills. Again, such a great life lesson for me around hard work. Different people have different skill sets. Some people may be smarter than you. Some people may be better at something than you. But it's up to you whether you outwork them. Only you can control that. And no one outworked my father, especially at this time in his life. Another thing some of you may know about my father is he was quite charming, especially with women. My mother, Janelle, met Pops when they worked together at the American Nurses Association in Kansas City. Pops got a job there out of college. He had an office, he had a door, he had everything. And you have to understand, in the 70s in the United States, a black man wearing a suit to work, having an office, having subordinates, people underneath him, was a huge deal, huge deal. And my mother, a white woman, was not scared of that at all. And they hit it off and were married shortly thereafter. When I was 7, they made the difficult decision to end their marriage, and my father made an even more difficult decision to move back home to Anguilla to pursue his own business with Uncle Victor here. With the help of his mother Lorinda and his close friend, Mr. Victor Banks, he made his way back to Anguilla, and he went on to have great, great successes here in his business. He thrived for many years. He married Marcia, and they lived happily until her untimely death in 2014. Many of you know Marcia was afflicted with a very rare condition, and Pops did his very best to get her the care that she needed. This required him to split time between Anguilla and Canada for many years. I'll always respect my father for the care and love he showed Marcia. I'll always remember Pops as the most loved person I've ever known. My mother often told me how much people just naturally adored him, and I witnessed it firsthand in the States, and especially here on Anguilla. I would get so frustrated as a child because anywhere we went, inevitably would get stopped by countless people. And I would say, Pops, I thought we were just going to the beach. And it would take 2 hours to get to the beach because we were stopping to talk to everyone. But as I got older, I grew to respect that most about my father. He cared so very much for people regardless of whether they were a stranger or a lifelong friend. He just had a way of making people feel seen and special. Charity was also very important to Pops. This is something he learned very much so from my grandmother, Violet. I remember after Charlie would leave in the morning to run his taxi service, at least a few times a week there would be needy people that would come to the quarter, and she would give them something to eat, something to drink, a little spare change if she had any. And I watched my father help people for the entirety of his life. He likely bought a drink and a meal for every person in this room. He gave money to friends, family, strangers, it didn't matter. He gave even when it was sacrificial to do so. While Pops and I lived in different countries for most of my life, he figured out a way to be an amazing father. I always felt loved and supported, regardless of the distance between us, and I'll always cherish the summers I spent here with him and all of you. As I said before, Pops was a man of few words. He was a fiercely private person. So much I learned from him, I learned through observation. And what I observed in him was a decent, kind, and loving man that always served others before himself. I thank God for him, and I will miss him always. Lastly, to my Aunt Marie, thank you. You're an angel that came into my life at a time where my mother was dying of cancer and my father was in the throes of dementia. I spent the entirety of the pandemic caring for my mother, and I was facing a similar situation with my father. I was running on empty. Thank you for being the epitome of a sister and an aunt. You cared for your brother with incredible grace. Pops would have surely succumbed to his illness years before had you not stepped in. You didn't just save his life, you saved my life. I love you. I will always be there for you and Travis. Thank you.